Podcasts are pretty common. So what makes the Uncommon podcast uncommon? Well, it's all in our name. I'm your host, Noah Weiss, and we at Uncommon Sports Group understand the unique pressures and temptations that come with the career in the sport industry. We provide uncommon training that helps you successfully navigate common challenges. Hit the follow button on this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Check out our website and become uncommon. What's up, USG fam? Welcome back to the Uncommon Podcast. I'm your host, Noah Weiss, and I'm excited to be joined today by a fellow Butler University alum and the man known as the dog guy, Evan Krauss. Evan's official role at Butler University is Senior Marketing Manager, but the most prominent part of his role, in my opinion, is to be the head of Butler's live mascot program, as well as being the owner and trainer of the world-renowned bulldog mascot, Blue. The mascot side of the sport industry is rarely discussed, so I'm excited to have Evan share more about his role at Butler and the impact that his program in Blue has had on Butler athletics and the university as a whole. Evan, thanks for being here with me today, man.
Of course, no, I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. And before we get into fun questions about Blue and about what you do at Butler, I would just love to start the conversation by learning more about your journey, because obviously the role you have is unique and one of a kind. So how did you get to the role you are currently in at Butler, and did you ever envision yourself doing what you do now?
Man, that's a loaded, long question. So I've been around the higher ed athletics landscape my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's side of the family was involved in athletics at Indiana University down in Bloomington. And then both my sister and I decided to kind of start our own little legacy here in Indy, and we both went off to our own ways at Butler. So we have two parents who went to IU, and then we ended up going to Butler. It was great timing for both of us. We got to see some great basketball. So as a high school student, my sister was a few years older than me. She was a cheerleader for Butler. And I got to see the likes of the Matt Howards and Gordon Hayward, Shelvin Mack play basketball with her free cheerleading tickets. So fell in love with the school, fell in love with the atmosphere. I was the kind of high school student who definitely knew that they needed a smaller school environment, which was very easily found at Butler. And just really fell in love with the community and family aspect that we have here on campus. It truly, this is going to sound like the most marketing cliche ever, but it is definitely a family aspect here on campus. So I ended up coming here myself. First year, really trying to find out what my role was on campus. I played tennis in high school, but wasn't the all-star athlete to be able to pursue any collegiate sports. I picked my major based off of its name. Luckily, it stuck well. In digital media productions, but was just trying to figure that all out. When I was walking around as a high school student, though, I did follow Butler Blue II, the mascot then, taking pictures of him when he went around just like any other normal fan. But then he retired and Blue III came along, and that kind of was what got my gears going of, well, how does this whole process work logistically? And I see that they're on T-shirts and they have stickers and they have blogs. And how does that all come together? So I was always kind of curious about that. And then my sophomore year at Butler, Michael Kaltenmark, who we refer to as the dog father of the live mascot program, he was the handler of Blue 2 and 3 and kind of has propelled the program to where it is now. When I took it over, he was looking for around 20 students to volunteer with the live mascot program at Butler. So I applied, and I lied on that form a couple times. First, I said I had a Twitter account. I did not have a Twitter account. And then it asked if I was allergic to dogs, which I am highly allergic to dogs, which is hilarious given my profession.
So funny.
But I got the role as a volunteer. There were a couple buckets of student volunteers, and so I was actually a videographer for the Live Mascot program.
Hmm.
I would go to a few events here or there, take some video from Michael to put out back on the Facebook back in the olden days, and then I just really worked my way up.
Hmm.
I kept showing up for things. I kept being available, expanding my skill set until senior year of college. This would have been 2012.
Hmm.
Or no, 2016. 2012 was high school. 2016, I was the first official intern for the Live Mascot program. So I
Wow.
spent 15 hours a week. I went to the games with Michael and Trip, did the
Hmm.
whole deal. And then after that internship, I was graduated and they brought me on full time as the first person in the country to be full time just to a Live Mascot. So
Hmm.
Michael still owned Blue the Third, but for all intents and purposes, I was doing a majority of the handling, the
Hmm.
social media content, things like that, till it was time for Blue the Third to step down and retire.
Hmm.
Um, Michael had decided that after 16 years of mascot handling, which is a very lifestyle altering job, as most sports jobs are.
Totally.
Um, his kids are growing up. He's got a teenager now and a preteen. That
Wow.
it was time to move on.
Hmm.
Um, so he passed off the metaphorical leash over to my hands and
Yeah.
helped me launch Blue the Fourth, and
Hmm.
now we're here.
That's awesome. It's so cool to see too how it wasn't super intentional that you would be in the role you are now. Certainly the stars aligned where that ended up being the case. And I can attest to being an alum that the mascot plays a huge role at Butler and even just in terms of the marketing of new students that are getting accepted to the school and attending and athletic events, right? Especially basketball. And it's really cool to see just how that program is used to market
Yeah,
Butler and especially on Twitter, right? Blue's Twitter account is crazy impressive. So I love to see it and love where you are. And it's cool to me as well that you've spent 8.5 years at Butler as a staff member. That's impressive. And I think something that is so common is a lot of young professionals are seeking that next opportunity at that different institution or different team. What have been the benefits for you for staying in one department, one organization, one university for all these years?
yeah, that's a tough one. Um, I have intense loyalty to many things. My wife would tell you I'm a brand loyalist. I'm a person loyalist. It's just kind of my DNA. Maybe I was
Yeah,
meant to be a dog person all along.
love it.
And so that is my biggest thing is I'm ride or die for my people and for that. So in terms of how that's benefited me is first off is the mentorship that I received.
Hmm.
Um, Michael really did take me under his wing when I was 19 years old, and kind of helped me grow until it was time to push me out the nest. So that was a
Hmm.
big part of it, is to be able to have that relationship. And now that even though he's no longer here at Butler,
Hmm.
and he was here for north of almost 20 years,
Wow.
um, he's still a great mentor and friend
Hmm.
to me and my family. So that would be the biggest piece that you get, I would
Hmm.
say,
Yeah.
um, is those relationships with your fellow staff. Now, I do see benefits of other perspectives, points of views of other
Yeah.
locations or other industries or jobs. However, I have loved being here for as long as I have.
Yeah, it's really a cool testimony, and to your point, right? There are so many unique situations, and there's nothing wrong with moving to another organization or university. But to your point, I think there can be a huge benefit to that loyalty aspect in nurturing your own growth underneath leaders that you can trust. And I just think too, sometimes the grass isn't always greener. You may think that it might be, but sometimes I think if you're in a place that is caring for you and helping you grow and giving you opportunities, right? You had to wait for a number of years to be in the role you are now. I'm sure that took a level of patience and trust in that
You have no
opportunity.
idea. A lot of
Right.
unknowns, a lot of patience. And what I'd like to tell people is, you only see the best of the best.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the comparison game you can see on Instagram and Twitter.
Hmm.
If no one's really putting out the days where they really don't love their jobs,
Totally.
out in the world. So
Yeah.
it's important to remember that as well.
And it's so true, right? And I think that's a really important note Yeah, to see. And sometimes as well, the better logo or better brand doesn't always mean a better opportunity for you and a better culture, right? Sometimes you got to think about those factors as well. So love that you've had some loyalty there, and I can attest it is a great place. So I love to hear that. And I think this next question, it's even hard for me to totally understand all that you do in your role, right? I'm sure it's not all dog related. There's probably certainly some professional elements to it that relate more to marketing in the university. So talk to us about your day-to-day responsibilities and really specifically with Butler Blue. And then what are some of the highlights of your day-to-day work?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's recently changed a bit. Just about a month ago, I accepted a new role here at Butler, an elevated role of, is a long title, Assistant Director of Digital Content Strategy.
Love it.
So I oversee a team now, and oversee all of Butler University's social media and digital presence. So that includes our Butler University official TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Threads, if that's going to live or not,
Right.
as well as Blues. And managing the team now is important for me in the perspective of I am now 29. I should not be making TikToks. I know that. So we have a great team.
That's
We have
fair.
Trinity Charles. She is a very recent grad. She just graduated in May. She does the actual day-to-day postings on the accounts and the
Cool.
management there. Also has a great video background. And then
Mm-hmm.
Blue also has an intern. His intern currently, her name is Grace. She's a current student with that digital media. So I've transitioned into a lot more managerial role of
Yeah.
how do I empower these two to use their skills to relate to the audience? And that's the biggest thing that we're looking for right now, especially on the university side, is
Yeah.
just social media is now about building community.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we turn our accounts from just broadcasting out noise and announcements to fostering relationships over a digital space?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a big part of my role now.
Yeah.
But the nice thing as the managerial role is I'm not into the day to day, so I can still uh, be very involved with Blue things. So
Mm-hmm.
when I'm not planning for Butler Social, I'm working through Blue Social.
Yep.
In terms of I can just walk you through the random stuff I've done this week. So we
Yeah.
firmed up his social content for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll have a plethora of content going out for all of the major winter holidays coming through,
Love it.
with an increased emphasis on video content, obviously.
Yeah.
Firming up his travel schedules, I just had to make sure he had a seat on the plane for the upcoming trips out to Georgetown and Yukon. Got to make sure
Love
we're
it.
up on that.
Yeah.
We can get into this a bit later, but we're not housed in athletics. So that's a big change in our program from other schools, is that we are in university marketing.
Mm.
So the benefit to that is that Blue is in reality the mascot for the entire university community. So that can be taking him to basketball games, but that could also mean that he goes to the Nutcracker performance that our ballet department puts out,
Which is a huge deal for those that don't know Butler University. In the show that happens, it's a huge deal. Yeah.
Huge deal. That Nutcracker is a huge deal.
Yeah.
It also means he helps out with advancement and visits donors, as well as probably the biggest, unique, and most important aspect for a private university is admissions, enrollment.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal to make sure that we have students attend.
Yeah.
And so Blue has a program where he surprises prospective students at their doorsteps with their admissions decision. He's the one who lets them know that they've been admitted to Butler.
So
We
cool.
do about 50 to 100 of those a year, so that takes up a big chunk of time. But that personal touch is really what makes Butler, as well as another benefit of having a live mascot.
Absolutely. So cool. And I think to your point that he's a university mascot is very unique to a lot of other organizations, universities. And just a follow-up question that I did not write down, so this may be as a surprise. How does Blue's role differ from the other mascots? Think of Georgia has a bulldog, right? I'm not a huge fan of his name, but it's UGA, right? UGA.
Yeah,
So
UGA.
right.
So yeah, there's 58 schools with live mascots, and we have really taken the role as the unofficial official caretakers of the mascot list. So
Wow.
we hosted the last live mascot conference.
Mm,
We're in constant communications with everybody.
yeah.
We have group chats of all of the mascot handlers just to, if we have questions for each
Yeah.
other. It's a very vast background.
That's cool.
So it's awesome. The conversations that we have are incredible, and there's no way that they happen anywhere else. From
Mm,
food storage for bald eagles to training to baby bears down in Baylor. It's just a whole
wow.
thing.
Yeah.
And really, what it boils down to is the respective universities' will and ability to give the mascot program freedom and control over themselves. So
Mm,
here at Butler, after years of arduous work and proving the benefits that the live mascot program can have if done well and correctly,
mm-hmm.
then it's a huge ROI. It's a great way to foster goodwill to your campus community.
Mm-hmm.
There's other schools who maybe can see it more as frivolous or a liability, or they don't have the staff or the funding to put a full-time staff team
Mm-hmm.
behind a live mascot, which is fully true.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is just an athletics mascot.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones that you'll see at the football game, and they'll be
Mm-hmm.
on the field or the court, and that's it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's fine for them, but we really think and see that it can be much more.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
we meet regularly as a group with the other live mascot handlers, and a lot more are turning to this new model of
Mm-hmm.
being there for the students and being more of a permanent fixture on the campus rather than
Mm-hmm.
seeing a celebrity on a red carpet.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that is so true. I mean, I can attest from my time there that, I mean, I was there actually for the changing of the color, which was pretty cool. But both dogs were very accessible to students, and honestly, I think more known as a dog that you would see for the university and not just for the sports teams, which I think is really unique and a very awesome way to use the mascot. I think it does wonders for the students to really connect well with the mascot and the university. So totally agree with that point. But I did want to follow up and ask, how does your role and Blue's role connect to athletics? What does that look like just from the seasonality, right? Of, football is big at Butler and obviously basketball is king. But there's sports going on throughout the entire school year. So how does he connect to athletics?
Yeah, it is a very interesting relationship, and luckily there's great people over in athletics, so where it's not a problem.
Yeah.
But we are two separate entities. But
Mm-hmm.
we're two separate entities that have a mutual respect and see
Mm-hmm.
that we both can benefit from each other.
Yeah.
So obviously, the basketball team is Butler's bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to not admit that basketball is our biggest ticket seller, our most notable program, the one who gets on Fox Sports.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
Yeah.
But we do have a bunch of other sports as well. So
Absolutely.
Blue does attend all the men's home basketball games,
Mm-hmm.
as well as we're traveling to about 6 other away arenas at this time.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to attend about half of the home women's basketball games
Mm-hmm.
and all of the home football games.
Mm-hmm.
As for all the other sports, he tries to hit the first and the last. I think we have like 19 D1 sports though, so if we were
Mm.
to hit every single game, we
Crazy.
would need like 5 dogs. It would be impossible.
Yeah.
But for us, it is that mutually beneficial of, hey, how can we make the biggest splash? But I don't want to get in your way.
Mm-hmm.
But what can we do for each other to make
Yeah.
sure that we're both benefiting? So like, we're not going to have like Blue doing a TikTok dance with Greg Oden 5 minutes before the tip off. Like that's not good for us.
Yep.
But being able to make sure, hey, we just need to get a place for Blue to be safe during the game and have him out in the court is what
Mm-hmm.
it's most about. And luckily for us, it's never been a problem.
That's awesome. It is cool to see his role in athletics, and I think too it does bring a more personable and likable aspect to mascots. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they can just seem in the way and really not quite as approachable because it's obviously a person under there, and it can be kind of goofy if you're an adult really getting excited about a mascot that isn't actually a live animal. So I think there is a
And
greater
yeah,
connection.
one thing that I think doesn't get talked about enough is really the mental health of these athletes and what they're
Mm,
going through.
Yes.
Yes, it's glamorous. They get to play D1 basketball. They get their tuition paid for. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
100% agree.
Yeah.
But what you don't realize is like, I know that our guys are headed out to Providence, Rhode Island on December 23rd, playing a 7 o'clock game, and they'll probably get back to Hinkle at what, 3 a.m.
Yeah. Right.
on Christmas Eve?
It's hard.
Or maybe if it's in February, they'll have a game at Tuesday at 8:30, get back to campus at Wednesday at
Mm-hmm.
3:30 in the morning and have a 9 o'clock class.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's a wear on these students. It's a lot.
Yes.
And so my
Absolutely.
hope is that while we're out in DC to get pictures with their dog
Mm-hmm.
and to do social media antics, things like that is,
Yeah.
well, after the game on the plane, if they get a little touch of home with them just to kind of give them a quick perk up, that's another big benefit as well.
Absolutely. That is a great point and so true, right? About the mental health of college athletes. It's so hard. It's just such a unique thing that a lot of us don't understand because we're not all at that level, right? So
Right.
I think that's a great point and a good lead into my next question of what value does blue bring to athletics? I think a lot of people can maybe assume that mascots themselves don't have a lot of value and they're just kind of there to be there. But I think for any organization or university, there is a point and a value to mascots. So what value does he bring to athletics and in what ways do you maximize that?
Yeah, there's a few ways. The first thing is that Butler Blue as an entity is a constant.
Mm-hmm.
We can be consistent in that we have a live mascot. Their name
Yeah.
is Blue. They wear a blue jersey, and no matter how up and down the team is, you can count that Blue will be there.
Yeah.
So, in the last few years, we've had our ups and a lot of downs in terms of performance. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that is a secret or something that isn't said.
Mm-hmm.
But Blue was there, and Blue was able to utilize his social media platform and his in-person persona
Mm-hmm.
to keep that Butler tradition alive.
Yeah.
When the on-court play maybe wasn't to what we wanted it to be at.
Mm.
And so that constant is something that you can see throughout the years as well. And
Yeah.
it's like the ties that bind us is the people who came here in 2000 had a little bit different experience than those who were here in 2010 or
Mm-hmm.
2016. But they can all look at Blue as, hey, that's our mascot. So having that consistent tie-in to the university, though coaches have changed, though players have changed, the facilities have changed a little bit.
Yeah.
They have that constant tie that binds them together in Blue. They may have not had Blue 4 as their mascot, but they know, hey, there's our dog, that's Blue.
Yeah.
And so that consistent is huge in terms of value.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of us, for a more Butler specific answer, Blue social media has just been a huge tool for both the university and athletics.
Mm-hmm.
He is the most followed account in terms of all Butler accounts,
Wow.
which is great.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, I mean, it's a touchy point at some point when your mascot has more following than your university accounts.
Yeah.
And now that falls under me, it's on me now too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing is, he's a dog. People like dogs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as simple as that sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
is that we have a cute dog that people love. And so being able to have that is a way for us to be more approachable.
Mm-hmm.
For him, we have these kind of core principles that we found the live mascot program on that we've recently put into words of joy, personality, availability, transparency. And that's what Blue can bring to the program that, maybe Coach Maddock can't do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It's just that availability that he can show the same feelings that the basketball team is feeling, or he can have that on their behalf.
Yeah.
So he can be the one in the literal furry embodiment of the Butler way that people can touch, that they can have a picture of, that they can represent by having his calendar on their wall to say, oh, this is what Butler is. This is what it means and what it feels like when they have him sniffing around their feet and giving him a treat or a high five. It's a more personal feeling and touch that, yes, if you get a picture with a basketball player, that's great. But this is a more emotional tie to it for sure.
Absolutely. And your point about the constant as well. I mean, even from my time being at Butler, which wasn't that long ago, to now, I mean, the entire basketball department is so different, players to coaches, right? It's all changed. And so the only thing tie that I really have to athletics anymore is the dog, right?
Right.
Which is, even as an alum, really cool to see. And I think too, like, his presence on social media is awesome. And it really is fun to see that. So I think from an alum
Thank you.
standpoint, it's an encouragement, and it makes you proud to be a part of that. So I think, to your point, there's a ton of value that I think even just probably goes more towards the fan base, which is a huge driving force in the success of athletics. So love that point, and just even learning more about the impact that mascots can have on
Yeah,
universities.
and our point of view there is always that we treat his social media as as the front door to the house, or I
Mm,
like to say the dog waiting on the front porch. Is
yeah.
maybe he's the reason people heard about Butler
Mm-hmm.
or are following Butler now, or maybe they watch our games when they're on TV.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just the beginning of all the great things that happen here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so true. And really, yeah, I love the point you made too, of just the constant presence. And it's really a fun part of being an alum. Absolutely. And I want to continue in terms of talking about what you do of marketing the university, but also marketing the sports side of what Butler embodies, and it really is all about. And for some of our listeners, right, they may have a desire to get into sports marketing. So what are some of the important skills that you would identify that relate to success in sports marketing? And then as well, what impact does sports marketing have on the industry of sport?
Absolutely. I think my biggest advice for young people trying to or thinking about getting into the game is you got to diversify your skill set as much as possible.
Mm,
You have to be a utility player, for throw some sports puns in there, and
yeah.
it's key. It's there are so many people out there, and it's so much easier for people to create their own content that these days, that you have to find a way to burst through that clutter and that noise.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason that you deserve an opportunity over the next person.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when it came to being the Butler Blue intern years ago, it was the fact that I could do video, photo, as well as I was good handling the dog. It was
Mm-hmm.
honestly the combination of both those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I added a strategic communications double major my junior year. So being able to write for the dog as well as do his design work and video work,
Mm,
having both of those combined is what started to set me apart.
yeah.
And so it really is the fact that you need to go out and figure those things out for yourselves. It's some of the
Mm,
things you'll learn in the classroom as well, but
yeah.
get out there, start creating your own stuff.
Yeah.
Try to get credentials for things, get pictures, get photos, get um, write up news stories. It's just you can't just do one thing anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and nor do I think people would want to. I
Yeah.
think that can get really arduous.
Yeah.
I do less and less of blues design work now that I
Mm-hmm.
oversee a team of people.
Yeah.
However, I still love to dig in and do some of that
Mm-hmm.
myself. So I think that's my biggest key is to first find your passions and get really good at that.
Yeah.
That be your firm foundation for sure. But
Mm-hmm.
then find those other skills that you can foster to say and raise your hand and be like, yeah, I can take
Mm-hmm.
care of that.
Yeah.
I can do that for you. Someone's out sick, I can cover for them.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be that reason that you get picked over somebody else.
Yeah. It really is a good point that there's a lot of different aspects of sports marketing, tons, right? And it's layered. And so if you can diversify your skill set and try new things, I think for any young professional that wants to get into sports, there are so many realms, so many ways you can get involved. And so try them out. See what you're good at, see what maybe you're not so good at, see what you're comfortable with and not comfortable with. Trial and error at the young stage of your journey is going to be essential. So love that you made that point, and just taking the chances, right? And getting your foot in the door really in any way that you can. So love that point. And I did want to make sure I shouted out Michael Kaltenmark. He was a huge part of your journey, certainly a huge part of, as you mentioned earlier, being 16 years involved with the live mascot program. How did your relationship with him help you get prepared for the job that you have now?
Yeah, he really. It's weird. We have a weird relationship to where I can say he's my best friend now.
Hmm.
But he was my boss for so long.
Yeah.
But we have, I think we're those friends that have like the three different we have a text group going. Uh, our dogs have an Instagram message going on right now. We have group chats. It's a whole thing.
Mm,
But for me, it's something I try to give on is first he was that mentor role.
mm,
And that is key. That was everything for me. I was young. I thought I had the world figured out. I thought I was a hot shot. And I'll have to tell you this story in a minute. But for him, he saw potential in me. And but he was most interested in grooming me as a person than as a professional. Yes, he helped me develop my professional skills, and he was a very good motivator in terms of he gave me this is going to be the worst pun ever. He gave me a really loose leash. If I had an idea, he let me run with it. Along the way, he would give me feedback. He would give me ideas. He would be very honest on how things were. But he really gave me that freedom to run. And then afterwards would go through and go through what I could do better, teach me some things professionally. But then personally, he was more about, hey, we want to make sure we're doing things the right way and for the right reasons. And whenever things wouldn't go well, it would be because we kind of drifted away from that foundation of the Blues are supposed to be sharing joy, happiness, and kindness. Like that is the firm foundation. If we're trying to be something we're not, then that's why it's not doing well. So that friendship was key. And it was more of really just trying to groom me into an adult. I mean, it's such a formative time. And so at the time, I thought this is a great example of when I was brought down a level. I was riding high. I was at my first trip away game with Blue the Third. Back then, they weren't allowing Blues into other arenas. They don't have to. It's a visiting live mascot. So we were driving to Marquette. We did the whole deal of we surprised prospective students in Milwaukee. We did a video of the dog eating cheese curds. We got pictures by the Bucks arena, and it was time to leave. Some alumni had gifted us tickets to the game that we weren't going to need. If we didn't want to leave the dog in the hotel room, we just decided to drive back to Indy, listen to Mark Minner on the radio, and head home. So Michael was going to go run to the stadium, drop off our tickets, and head back to the hotel. He asked me to take the dog back to the hotel, load the car, meet him out front. So I get about 5 feet away from the stadium with Trip, the mascot at the time, and there is a slice of pizza on the sidewalk that Trip really wants. So he's dragging me over to it. He's trying to eat this sidewalk pizza. There's no way I'm going to let the live mascot eat this sidewalk pizza. But at the same time this is all happening, I'm wearing a Butler shirt. The Butler Bulldogs wearing a Bulldog jersey, and all these Marquette fans are just walking by and laughing at us as they know exactly what's going on. So this struggle happened for about 10 minutes. My ego just goes right down to here. And Michael gets to where we are. He's like, wait, what are you doing? I told you to go get the car. And I said, look, it's pizza. He won't leave it. And in 2 stern words, he said, leave it. Dog just perked up and walked straight to the hotel. So at that moment, I knew, you know what? I still have quite a bit more to learn in this role. So that it's a funny story, but that really is what is the benefit of having that person that you can look up to is to this day, I'll still call him and be like, hey, I have this problem. Whether it be a logistical problem, an advice problem, a technical question, and he's still there to, if anything, just be a sounding board. And that was huge. And what I try to do now is to return that favor. And I think that is a big key. And another benefit of staying at a place for so long is returning that. I think it's important for us to remember that this is not professional sports. This is collegiate sports. Every person here, whether they are a manager on the team, in the band, on the team, they're a student. They're a student athlete. They're a student manager. They're a student in the band. And so everything we do should be looked at an opportunity to be able to teach these students something in the process.
Absolutely. Love that you mentioned the personal impact that Michael had on you, because I think that is pivotal in having a strong leader in your life, is that personal development. Certainly the professional side, obviously it was something that he impacted you with because you're here now and you're doing a great job. But that personal side, I think, is where the value comes from. And especially when what you mentioned, when you stay at a place for such a long time, you can build that relationship with your leaders and with those that are running the program that you're a part of, and it can really help you develop. So great point. And really is just so cool to see what this mascot program is, right? Even as an alum and being able to be a part of when Tripp was there. I'm sure I was on that road trip to Marquette. Definitely, I love going up there. It's a fun trip, but
I do love that trip. Marquette area is just gorgeous.
oh, that's great, especially with that new arena now. It's even more fun to be up there. So,
Oh yeah.
couldn't agree more. And I think what you mentioned about the pizza story is a good transition to this next question. Certainly, when you have a role such as yours that is unique and doesn't usually come with such a clear playbook as to how to do it, it comes with challenges. What are some of the challenges you have faced in your role, and how have you overcome those?
Oh man, overcoming that's the tough part.
Mm-hmm.
There's two that really come to mind. First is work-life balance. I'm
Yeah.
married. I have a wife. We recently moved off campus. We lived on campus for the past 4 years.
Mm.
Um, and that was great to be able to pop over for a women's game on a Sunday at 2. It's not
Mm-hmm.
an option anymore for us. We live about 25 minutes away from campus, so it takes a little bit more effort.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a constant battle and a constant thing to manage for anybody looking to get into the sports industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what it is.
Absolutely.
Games aren't 9 to 5.
Nope.
Monday through Friday.
Nope.
So having a very understanding spouse is huge, but it also is a big responsibility on yourself to be present in those moments that you are available, and to make yourself available when you can. I remember about a year ago, I was in Meyer, probably like a Thursday at noon. And I ran into John Dedman, our sports information director, and he looked at me, and we were both had a shopping cart full of groceries in the middle of the week. And he's like, well, we don't have time to do this weekend, do we? We had a basketball game. We had a football game that week. It was a full weekend. So it was just kind of funny to see, okay, it's not just me. It's just, we have to find the time to do the things when we can. So that'll always be huge.
Yep.
And then something else that's just really tough for me, and it's something that I do struggle with a lot, is in this world of social media, the keyboard warriors and the haters, if you will, is just it happens even in the live mascot world, if you can imagine that. There's opportunities with Yik Yak to post anonymous things, and other social media sites of just people who disagree with what you're doing or putting out there, or just looking to get a rouse out of you. And people forget that there's people on the other side of the keyboards who receive that.
Totally.
Whether that be coming to the Butler University side or to Blue's account, it can be really taxing to get those messages.
Yeah.
Because when you put so much time and effort into creating a brand or persona, you really feel that in as a representation and an extension of yourself. So, and that's something I really try to hammer home with the team is those messages are not coming to you. Those are coming at the broad terms of Butler University or Butler Blue. So, and it's hard to not feel personally attacked because you're the one who's getting the notification. So that's something that is really, really hard for any young professional to think through. It really pays off to have thick skin. I haven't found mine totally yet, but it is something that I think people should be aware of.
Yeah. Certainly, I'm a sensitive guy, so I can totally understand what you're feeling. And I think you made two great points. The work-life balance is something that I think in almost every podcast we've done, that's been a point of conversation, as it should be, right? And I've had experience as a student manager and different internships that I've had of experiencing that challenge. And it's not easy. And you mentioned as well, I mean, if you're a single guy, it's a little easier, right? But when you're married and you have responsibilities at home and people waiting for you, it can be a greater challenge. So I appreciate you sharing on that.
Yeah, and I don't have kids yet. So when that comes into the picture, I'm sure it's a whole nother ball game.
Whole nother ball game, no doubt about it. I remember when I was a student manager, our head coach at the time, Coach Jordan, he's a great individual, one of my mentors, and just a guy that really impacted me. And I remember asking him specifically that question of how do you balance? He has 3 kids, he's married. And he said, no, it has to be a lifestyle for your whole family. It can't just be for you. And I think he really embodied that of how often his family was around the program and enjoyed being a part of it. So I think if you can strike that balance and find the right people around you, and understanding spouse, as you mentioned, it can be a little easier to manage. So it's a
Yeah,
great,
I
great
think
point you
that's
made.
a great Jordan impression too, by the way. I think for us it's difficult because we both have lifestyle jobs. She works at a church here in Indy,
Hmm.
and I think it's challenging, but it's also an opportunity for both of us to support each other. So
Yeah.
there is some crossover in our busy season.
Hmm.
Obviously, Christmas is
Yeah.
huge for her working at a church.
Certainly.
But when
Certainly.
I'm able to go and support her, is a great opportunity for me to show her how invested I am in
Hmm.
her role. And then
Yeah.
when she can come to games, it's a great opportunity for her as well. So that's been key
Hmm.
for us.
That's awesome. I love that too, and that you both can share in each other's work, and that's a huge blessing. And really, another good transition to my next question. Obviously, you have a passion for Butler and for Butler athletics, but you also have a passion for Jesus Christ and being a follower of His. Talk to us about how you connect your faith to your role. I think for young professionals, that can be so hard to sort of bring those two things together and have those two things kind of be connected. So, how do you do that in your role just day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I thought I was going to work in a church. I thought that was the best way to use a spiritual gift. I thought
Hmm.
that was the only way
Yeah.
until I did realize there's ways to use your spiritual gifts all over the world.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and so that really is how I try to run the live mascot program. I try to spread joy, peace, love, kindness through him.
Mm.
Now I'm not saying that Blue is evangelizing anybody. However, that's not
Yeah.
what he's here for, and
Right.
that's not what I'm doing through him.
Right.
But I can still have those foundations of
Mm.
living my life like Christ would,
Yeah.
and to spread that happiness and joy out there into the world,
Mm.
and have that in mind when I have conversations with people, and just try to be the best representation that I can,
Hmm.
in terms of living like he did.
Yeah. That's a great, great answer. And I couldn't agree more, right? Think about one of my favorite verses is Acts chapter 1, verse 8. And this is Jesus speaking to his disciples, and he tells them that they will be his witnesses in Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And the word witness, literally think about like a place of like a court, right? And a witness goes to the stand. All the witness does is share what they saw. That's it. They
Hmm.
don't convince anybody. They're not laying down the law. They're not the one with the gavel. They share what they saw and they move on. And so when I think about being a witness to who Jesus is, you share what you have seen, what God has shown you through Christ of how to live, right? The way we treat others and the witness and testimony he has. So I think in your role, you're doing exactly that. And for our listeners too, right? If you're embodying those key elements of what Christ has called us to do, that can have an impact, even if it isn't with words, but more so with action. So
Yeah,
tremendous.
it's tricky line here for sure. I mean, we're a liberal arts university.
Yeah.
We have no religious backing,
Mm-hmm.
it's important that we are fully inclusive on our channels on social media.
Yeah.
So even though I'm a Christian, Blue will be celebrating every single holiday coming up this
Yeah.
season. He's celebrating Hanukkah with our Jewish students. He's
Mm-hmm.
celebrating Kwanzaa and Christmas.
Mm.
So it's important for me not to use his
Yeah.
platform to spread.
Yeah.
However, to operate in my personal life and how
Mm.
I just live, and be that witness is the way to do that. And it is very important to do that.
That's awesome. I love to hear that, Evan. And it's cool as well. The way, honestly, that I found that you were a follower of Jesus was your Twitter page. So I think something
Yeah.
even as small as that can really be a good reflection of who you are and what you
Throw
value.
that in your bio. You never know what's going to happen.
For real. It's so true. It's so true. And Evan, I think this next question too, our listeners probably have a desire to learn from you. Certainly you have a lot of experience and you are in a really awesome role. What advice would you give any young professional listening that has a desire to be in this industry?
Yeah, I think, again, just double down on that. Find what you're passionate about, but then find those auxiliary skills that
Mm,
you
mm,
can add to your arsenal to really set yourself apart. Double down again. Find yourself a really good role model. Find
yeah.
someone who is willing to put in that time to mentor you both personally and professionally.
Mm,
And then the other part is you have to find that passion.
mm,
If I wasn't, I could not do this at another school.
mm,
That's for sure.
yeah.
I could not. People always say, "Hey, looks like Georgetown needs a new dog. Are you going to go take over their program?" And no, I can't because I'm not passionate about Georgetown.
Mm,
I don't know many people uh, who go to their games in my my really big in my portfolio of people. It's just not it's not
Yeah.
my community.
Yeah.
And so for me, I am passionate about the education, the relationships, and the community that Butler University has to offer. That's why I spend the time to do it. It's not always the most glamorous, but being able to lean back onto those principles is what does it for me. And so that's huge.
Yeah.
The more passionate you are about your role or your job, the more important it's going to be. So maybe for you, it doesn't matter if it's a specific university, as you know. You cannot really cherry pick what university you go to. I know
Nope.
my intern 2 years ago, Emma, she amazing videographer. She no ties to California whatsoever. Just started a job with Cal, and is crushing it because her passion is creating and telling stories with video, and she's doing that and doing a great job there. So really, just finding that passion is what's going to keep that alive. And then I think it's key in all of your dealings that you have to have your own personal values and foundation to lean upon, and to remember that every day.
That's good.
This is why I do what I do. When you're frustrated, this is what you can lean on. This is not the kind of person I am. This is not what we look through perspective wise. And then in terms of what content you put out as well, is it following that same kind of foundation as well?
That's huge. Great points. Great points. And I love that you mentioned the passion one, because you think about some of the best athletes or best business owners, right? Icons that we all know. I think what makes them stand apart and be so successful is passion, right? You know, even in pro sports, there's not much of a gap in terms of athletic ability between those athletes, but some stand out. And I think often it is because of the passion. So we can take that into our industry of sport and think of, okay, what is going to make me want to push through those long nights, right? Push through those Saturday night game days when I'd rather be with family, with friends. It's going to be the passion that you have. So great points. And my last question, Evan, it's a fun one, something that I'm curious about your response. What is your favorite Butler sports memory?
Oh, dear Lord. I'm going to have to read his name off a couple rapid fire because there's too many.
Yeah.
The cool thing is I have some of when I was a fan and then some that I was a part of. So as a fan, back-to-back Final Four runs. I mean, it's the cliche answer, but golly, was that fun 2 years. But I was in high school then. So it was like looking through someone else's lens. And then another one when I was a student fan, Rodney Clark's three-pointer to take us to the championship of the Maui Invitational. I was lucky enough to be there because my sister was cheering in that.
Wow.
Historic gym, historic tournament. Amazing. Beat Marquette, which is always fun.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good Marquette team, too. So that was pretty great. And then in terms of in the workings with this, and I'm sure you have your own story here, but the first time you walk out onto the court of Madison Square Garden, holy cow! It takes a second.
It does.
It takes a second. Takes your breath away. Then you got to remember, oh gosh, I got to make sure I'm doing my job, or I got to act like I've been here before. But that was huge. It was really cool when I walked out with Tripp for the first time when I was still underneath Michael. A video popped up. Fanta was interviewing me about Tripp. That was on the screen when I walked out, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And had to bring myself back down. So that was a big moment for me. I always love going out there. It was fun this past year. We had some court time with Georgetown's mascot as well as UConn's. Awesome. So they had blocked off the court for the three dogs just to go run around together. That was awesome. A pretty cool moment. And then the changing of the collar ceremony, or really, I guess more the introduction of Blue for the first time he was on court versus we played Marquette that game. We beat them by 4 in overtime for Blue 4. And the roar of the crowd when we brought out this little dog. He was just a little puppy at the time, carrying him in my arms. It was just like a taste of what was to come. And just to feel the potential that could be from that was amazing. And it's a moment I think about quite a bit.
Those are awesome memories. And I can attest 100% to the Madison Square Garden point. I did make a 3-pointer
Nice.
Uncontested at Madison Square Garden. So that is a memory of mine. And I would say to all our listeners, Hinkle Fieldhouse is a place you must visit if you are a real college basketball fan, for sure. And if you're just
We're so
a
spoiled.
sports fan in general, there's no place like it. It is.
And we've been to a lot of stadiums between the two of us. We've seen a lot of places.
A ton.
We are spoiled with what we get on our campus.
Countless. And even, I mean, there's some great arenas across the Big East, but it's just one of a kind. It's a cathedral of basketball, and I think that's what makes it.
And
so
some
special.
not so great, but we won't throw those schools under the bus.
Right. Exactly. Well, Evan, I just got to say, man, I'm grateful for what you're doing at Butler, and certainly as an alum, it is really cool to see the impact that you're having. And thanks for taking the time to share with us today about your role.
Of course, it was my pleasure.
If you want to get involved with Uncommon Sports Group and the mission that we are on to help you navigate the sport industry as followers of Christ, apply for our academy on our website at uncommonsg.org. That's uncommonsg.org. Be sure to catch new episodes of the Uncommon Podcast every other week on Thursdays at midnight Eastern Time. Until next time, we pray that you will strive to be uncommon by glorifying the name of God in whatever you may do. See you next time.